Hello and welcome, and thank you for joining us in another episode of HAR2 live session. And so today we are going to discuss about all things about electric two-wheelers, and if the current crisis can be a blessing for electric vehicles in the Indian market, and much more on the similar lines. And I have with me Mr. Tarun Mehta, CEO and co-founder of Ather Electric. And hi, Tarun, how are you doing today?
Hi, Vishal. Thanks for having me over.
Yeah. So, Mr. Tarun, first of all, I'd like to ask that the current COVID pandemic has changed the traditional ways of doing business, and from
Hmm.
production, transportation, and sales, the world has changed as we know it. And so, how is Ather picking up after this?
So, I think this is a crazy different time. We are young as a company, so we haven't seen many of the previous crises. So this is the first for us. It's a double whammy because obviously because of the lockdowns and the overall slowdown of the economy, demand will take a hit for a few quarters at least. But also supply is hit substantially. Luckily for us, we had indigenized almost all components on the vehicle except the lithium ion cells. But ironically, the bigger supply chain problem today is in India because our suppliers are also stuck. So there's a demand challenge, there is a supply challenge. But looks like we're starting to come out of it. I think in 6 to 8 weeks, we should hopefully be completely out of it as far as supply is concerned. And if the common policies work favorably, then hopefully demand also will stop being a challenge later this year.
All right. So, how is this impacted Ather's production, and will the customers will have to wait a little longer for the deliveries now? Is it so?
So yes and no. Yes, customers will have to. Well, customers won't have to wait longer in Bangalore because we continue producing Ather 450s. So obviously, everybody had to take in the lockdowns we couldn't deliver, but we began deliveries at a pretty healthy pace in the last few weeks. In fact, yesterday was one of our best days for deliveries over the last several months. So there are a lot of pending deliveries. They have begun well. So Bangalore's fine. Chennai is picking up. But cities, people, customers outside Bangalore and Chennai will have to wait a little longer because we were planning to begin deliveries of Ather 450X in all cities outside Bangalore, Chennai. Unfortunately, Ather 50X was in the was in the productionization phase when lockdowns hit. So it has taken a hit on timelines. And what was going to come out in July will likely come out in September, October now. So customers outside Bangalore and Chennai will have to wait for about 2 to 3 months more to get their vehicles. We have a lot of pre-orders there, so hopefully we should be able to get them
All right. So, how's the customer response been after you resumed operations? I mean, is it possible to share details on the number of bookings that you've taken so far after resuming services?
number of bookings are still coming in, but not at the same pace. I would say they are at probably about 30-40% of the overall. They're 30-40% of the pre-COVID levels. Bangalore's probably doing a little better. Bangalore's probably more than 50%. Um, Deliveries are happening at a healthy pace because there's obviously pent up. There's a lot of people who have pre-ordered and have been waiting for the last 2 months. So deliveries have begun well, and a lot of people have started taking deliveries. Overall, how's the customer sentiment? Honestly, we'll have to wait to see. Right now, I think the data is quite colored because a lot of customers waiting for the last 2 months, and they're suddenly rushing in to take deliveries of their 450s. But how is the overall customer sentiment? I think we'll have to wait for a couple of months. We'll have to probably open up a few more cities, and then we will get a sense. What we have, I would say, not driven really by data, but what we are seeing a little bit, it doesn't look like sentiments overall gone down a lot for electric vehicles because remember, electric vehicles, unlike their IC engine counterparts, are not in a saturated market. So electric vehicle sales are primarily driven by more and more geographical expansion. So as long as you can open more and more cities, it's hard for the numbers to really tank. Uh, so at this point, I'm pretty bullish on EV two-wheeler sales continuing to grow. Despite all the FAME requirements last year, the overall EV two-wheeler market grew by 20%. So I wouldn't be surprised if it grows much more this year.
All right. So in the recent BS4 to BS6 transition, we've seen that
Mm.
the price increment has happened in the ICE powered two-wheelers. So do you think EVs will benefit from this?
But yeah, absolutely. I think BS4 to BS6 is one of the first big levelers for electric vehicles, because what it does is, so I know historically a lot of people believe a typical petrol scooter is like 50, 60K. But two things have happened. First, customers have started looking more and more for a 125cc scooter, and BS6 has hiked the prices, and B125cc is more expensive. So, for example, in Bangalore, a a decent 125cc petrol scooter, not a most premium scooter, is already at 95, 90, 96,000 rupees. So I think it's narrowing the gap between electric and petrol substantially. And that really helps electric vehicle sales because the gap is that narrow, but remember, electric vehicles are about 8 times cheaper to run. An electric scooter is about 8 times cheaper to run than a petrol counterpart. And the cost doesn't change over years because the electricity cost is not changing and motors don't become less efficient. So if the upfront cost keeps coming, the difference between upfront cost keeps coming down, then electric vehicles has become so much more of a compelling purchase.
Right. So, as for the new trend, like customers may not want to go to the showroom and dealerships, and so this is actually the new trend in this COVID era. So, how do you think the Ather is ready for this challenge?
So this is actually right up our alley because from day one we've been an online first brand. More than 50% of our orders come online already, and even the other 40% or odd, we know that bulk of the people have made up their minds on buying electric vehicles. So hello,
Hello, I think I lost you for a bit over there.
hello,
Yeah, yeah. Hi, Tarun. I think I lost you for a bit over there. Tell me. Hello.
hello. Prashant, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, apologies for that. We had the standard 5 o'clock rains in Bangalore, and
Oh,
predictably, electricity went away.
yeah.
So it
Okay.
took a minute. Okay, sorry. So I was saying that uh, we were talking about. Gosh, I lost my thread.
Yeah, yeah. We were talking about like everything is going digital, and customers may not want to go into the
Yes, pre-orders
showroom.
online.
And
Yeah.
so, how's
So I was saying
yeah,
that I think for us, anyways, we were wired to go online first. If you notice, our marketing in Bangalore and Chennai, our content, everything is online first. Even things like servicing and all, we never expect people to come to our experience center. We offer pick up and drop. We offer remote diagnostics. We offer a complete connected experience. Like that. That's been core to Ether for a very, very long time. And in some ways, the COVID related disruption works to our favor because this is what Ether was always built for, this kind of a world, which is online first. Having said that, offline will continue to play an important role. So our retail is still up. We are taking pre-orders. We are letting people book test rides, book pre-test ride slots in advance, so that we can ensure that we don't have a lot of crowding at the retail outlets. We continue to onboard our dealer partners in other cities. We already have one or two cities live with us now, and this will continue spreading. But for us, the retail outlet was never the first connect point with the customer. For us, it was always online first.
all right. So, how this pandemic affected Ather's original expansion plans to the newer cities? Can you throw some light on it?
So if so it actually doesn't change much on the geographical plan expansion plan. It does push it off by about a quarter because we lost out on most of March, April, and May to onboard and meet new partners in other cities. So we lost out that time. So it pushes up things by quarter, but not much more. In fact, we are aggressively looking if we can open, if we should open more cities faster in this timeline. But it does change a few things on a product roadmap. See, before COVID, I think we were looking at a lot of different things. We were not just looking at the 450 and the 40X, but a variety of other scooters. We were looking at other vehicles. We had a lot of expansion plans on the product roadmap side. I think what this has caused us, it has definitely made us reconsider that. And what we've chosen to do is focus a lot more on the product that we have and the capability that we have, and making sure that we can scale this up first before we go to a lot of different other products. So it's brought in a lot more focus internally on the product side, and on the geographical expansion side, apart from a quarter worth of pushback, not much has changed.
Okay, so as you know now that people may not want to travel in the public transportation, and more people are now gravitating towards personal transportation. So how do you think that e-two-wheelers can possibly gain from this trend?
So I think in general, two-wheelers do gain from this trend because people who were either using a shared car in the past, carpooling, or just plain shared cars, or they were using public transport, metro, bus, whatever. Most of them would be definitely looking at purchasing their own two-wheeler and not even a shared two-wheeler. So that trend definitely helps the entire two-wheeler industry, not just electric industry in particular. Um, but I think where it does help the electric two-wheeler market a little bit is that we believe at Ather very strongly that the growth of electric two-wheelers is going to be driven a lot by new ownership models. People see, because the thing is, when you sell an electric vehicle, you are selling the battery with the vehicle, and that always tends to increase the upfront cost of the vehicle substantially, which imposes an artificial, which not artificial, which imposes a very real entry barrier for a lot of customers because the battery cost is still high. So there has been a push, definitely Ather, to separate the battery cost from the vehicle cost and offer more financing options. Now, financing options come in different forms. It could be leasing, it could be subscriptions, it could be, and different ownership forms exist. I think the post-COVID world requires a lot of innovation on new ownership models. It could be renting, it could be leasing, it could be subscriptions, it could be 6 month rentals, long form rentals, because a lot of customers will come in the market to use a two-wheeler maybe only for the first 3 to 6 months initially before they're really convinced. All of it plays really to the strength of what a electric two-wheeler pricing is. Electric two-wheelers can be priced really aggressively if there's a lot of innovation that happens on the pricing and the ownership front. So in that sense, second order effect, I think there is an advantage for electric two-wheelers.
And to add to that, is there a possibility that Ather Energy will expand its business into tier two or tier three cities in the future?
Without revealing much more about our city plans, because I'll get a lot of flack from my PR and marketing teams. But yes, we are definitely looking at. So we were looking at a certain number of 10 top cities, but I think we are a lot more open to a few more tier two cities in this FI itself. Um, and purely because, unfortunately, some cities have a very serious COVID impact, and expanding there is unfortunately not immediately feasible. But we don't want to slow down our expansion plans. So there are a few tier two cities that were in phase 2 or 3 of expansion plans that are getting pulled up faster now.
Okay. And as you know that some of the mainstream automakers are now focusing on EVs more seriously.
Hmm.
And do you think it is a challenge for a company which is not that old in the game?
Actually, this is an immense opportunity because remember, the entire auto industry today is primarily focusing its efforts and energies on its existing business, which is under a lot of stress. Remember, all the large automakers markets are largely saturated, and in that kind of a saturated market, most of them are projecting 30, 40, 50% down downwards sales this year. A lot more of their attention, bandwidth, and time and money needs to go in supporting their primary IC engine market. And this means that, as far as we can see, most mainstream EV makers' plans are actually slowing down. It is primarily newer companies and companies that are 100% dedicated towards electric that can continue to invest and focus their energies in building and launching electric vehicle. To me, this is advantage startups. This is not advantage legacy OEMs.
Okay, so my next question is about if Ather Energy is ready to launch an electric motorcycle in the market, maybe not immediately, but in next few years. So if there are plans, then what's the delay for?
Focus. I don't think we can afford to sort of right now use our limited resources and use them in development of new products. I will not deny. I think it's a very painful decision because all of us internally would love to work on brand new products. That's what the DNA of the company is. But we also kind of know that this is the time to focus on operations and make sure we scale up 450's business dramatically across the country. And that's where every smart person, every person, and every ounce of energy and bandwidth and time and money that we have needs to be spent on that first, especially in a resource constrained environment like this. So as much as we would love to work on a bike or a new scooter, they have to wait at least for 12 months more.
At least for 12 months more.
At least
Okay,
for 12 months.
okay. So
And
my
by that
last
I
question.
don't mean we launch in 13 months. I'm saying that we don't work on a new product for 12 months.
Right. So my last question would be, how do you think the government can improve upon the current benefits and the package that are given to EV makers right now? And what do you think improvements can be done when the next FAME scheme is announced in the future?
Um, I think the current FAME scheme is on point, is correct because it incentivizes domestic production, it incentivizes fewer imports, it incentivizes good technology like lithium ions introduction in the market in favor of red acid. So these are all the good points about FAME two. The subsidy I would say is healthy, as are the tax benefits. I would want to see this policy remain in effect for at least another 2 to 3 years, because that's the kind of time frame the industry needs to build up on its advantages and launch credible products. However, if the government can do more, I would say two big things. First, I think there is a big opportunity and not a need, but I would say there's a big opportunity to offer supply side incentives. Let me explain what that means. Today, what we're seeing increasingly in the market, especially in the last 8 to 9 months, is a lot of global suppliers want to come in the Indian market. They can sense that with FAME 2, there's an opportunity to introduce good technology in the Indian market. Indian OEMs, startups or larger OEMs are all very keen to work with global players. So more and more players want to come in, and many of them, if they come into India first, are hoping to see that India can become their center for all South Asian markets. Because remember, India is also the largest two-wheeler market out there. So I think at this point, a little bit of support from the government, whether in form of tax rebates or infrastructure support to incentivize local supply chain creation, can has an opportunity to make India probably the largest supplier of EV technology and powertrain components in the entire Southeast Asian markets, probably even more. So that's one opportunity, and I would definitely say that's worth chasing for the government. The second is charging infrastructure, and I know that's a very standard ask, but as the markets mature, and we are starting to see that in Bangalore, where sales are beginning to grow beyond. We've sold thousands of scooters now in Bangalore, and we can see that as the market goes beyond the true early adopters, there are a lot of customers who are today sitting on the fence because for them charging at home is not an obvious thing yet. And while we at Ather are really supporting them, it is still taxing, and some sort of a central government driven initiative which can get a 5 amp socket in every single parking lot, even if it's new apartment complexes, it at least lends credibility. Today, there are a lot of apartment complexes who are confused. Should I allow a homeowner to install a 5 amp socket in their parking lot? At least give it credibility, Christian some credibility on it. Make it a law. If that happens, I think we'll see a massive awareness increase and a massive increase in number of charging points, which in turn will be a massive catalyst for EV sales. We don't need a lot of investments for public charging stations. Honestly, I think for that you have charging infrastructure companies and OEMs willing to invest themselves because there's a business case. But I think a structural change asking for installation of charging points at home, just 5 amp sockets or 15 amp sockets, I think, and that's a very cheap thing. That as a policy change can drive a huge EV transition.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Tarun. And thank you all
Right?
our
It
viewers for joining us on this live session.
was nice talking to you, Prashant.